What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video of the Emanuel Navarrete versus Liam Wilson fight. Now, before I give you out a summary of what took place in the fight, I'm going to tell you out the results first. Emanuel Navarrete was able to win the WBO Super Featherweight title via 9th round knockout. Now, this fight, in my opinion, it was probably the best fight thus far. I know we early in the year 2023, and this is the best fight that this year has produced, and hopefully we get to see more fights like these, because it was definitely a compelling bout that we saw last Friday night. If y'all haven't seen the fight, I recommend that y'all go tap into this fight. Anyways, to sum up what took place in the fight, I personally had the fight score prior to the knockout 76-75 in favor of Navarrete, and the beginning rounds, Wilson was getting the better of Navarrete. He was doing a good job at cutting off the space with him and Navarrete, and he was landing the more efficient punches, and Navarrete had a hard time connecting his shots, and he couldn't get in position to where he could land the shots at a good rate, and he was swinging very wildly in the beginning rounds of the fight. It wasn't until the knockdown happened in the 4th round, and that's when Wilson caught Navarrete with a good counter shot. He caught him with a good left hook right on the chin, and that wobbled Navarrete and buckled his legs, and then Wilson went on the attack and threw combinations of punches that were landing flush on Navarrete, resulting in a knockdown. However, that was the fire that Navarrete needed under him, because after that 4th round, every round after that, it was all Navarrete. Navarrete was more accurate with all the shots that he was throwing, and he was connecting some significant shots in the fight after that knockdown happened. And that's how fighters want to recover from a knockdown. And then in the 9th round, Navarrete would get a knockdown on Wilson. He dropped him with a flush straight right hand. Wilson didn't have his footing under him, and then, like Wilson did in the 4th round, Navarrete also did the same in the 9th round. Unlike Wilson, Navarrete finished the job, and he would score a TKO win to become the new WBO Super Featherweight champion. The knockdown happened very early on in the 9th round. That's why Navarrete had the advantage to close out the show, unlike Wilson did, because when Wilson scored a knockdown, it was later on in the 4th round, and Navarrete, he was in trouble. He was. However, time was more on his side than it was on Wilson's side. And Wilson, as I mentioned before, didn't have his footing. He couldn't find his balance after that knockdown, and he was wobbled. And Navarrete did what any good fighter would do, and that was to take advantage, and he did just that. And then the referee made the right call, because Wilson was out on his feet and Navarrete kept on throwing punches and bunches. That called for the referee to call a halt to the bout, and Navarrete is successful. I think this was his debut fight at the Super Featherweight division, because he was the WBO Featherweight champion, and this was, I think, his first title win at the Super Featherweight division. And as far as the Super Featherweight division goes, I wouldn't say it's as competitive as the featherweight division. I think featherweight division's got more of a better scene as far as the talent that it has. The super featherweight division's got a good amount of talent there as well. They got a good scene going on at the super featherweight division as well, with Shakur Stevenson, who was the most recognizable name at the super featherweight division. He moved on up to the lightweight division. Now that leaves more of a vacancy at the super featherweight division, hence why Navarrete moved up and won that vacated WBO super featherweight title, and that's the title that Shakur Stevenson vacated for him to move up to lightweight. And now Oscar Valdez, who was in attendance at that fight, he showed up to the ring to, I guess, face off with Navarrete, and they're teasing a possible match in the future with Valdez and Navarrete. That would be a good fight. And Valdez, I mean, he's not the most recent opponent that Shakur Stevenson fought. However, before Stevenson defeated Canseco, that's who Stevenson fought to win the WBC super featherweight title. And Valdez has been a key name at the super featherweight division for a long time. And Navarrete being a champion at the featherweight division, and Navarrete's, him being one of the best featherweight fighters when he was fighting at the featherweight division, and in his debut fight as super featherweight, and him winning his debut bout and becoming the new WBO super featherweight champion, making him a 3-time world champion in 3 different weight classes. Him versus Valdez calls for a great fight. And if that fight doesn't happen immediately, as I said before, the super featherweight divisions got a whole list of good names out there for Navarrete to defend his WBO super featherweight title against. There's the current WBA world champion Hector Luis Garcia, the current IBF world champion Rakhimov. The current number 1 ranked contender is Archie Sharp. He's undefeated out of England, 22-0. There's Lamont Roach Jr., there's Gutierrez, there's Cordina, Ogawa, Canseco. There's a good list of challengers that could give Navarrete a good challenge for that world title. And Navarrete being one of the best featherweights when he was fighting at featherweight, and now him winning in his debut bout at super featherweight, becoming the new world champion, and this makes him a 3-time world champion at 3 different weight classes. Him versus Valdez calls for a great fight in the future. Now, if that doesn't happen next immediately, there's still good quality opponents out there for Navarrete to defend his WBO super featherweight world title against. As I said before, the super featherweight's got a good scene going on right now with a whole list of good fighters. There's a current WBA world champion, Hector Luis Garcia. There's the current IBF world champion, Rakhimov. There's the current number 1 ranked contender at WBO, Archie Sharp. He's a undefeated fighter out of England. There's Chris Colbert, there's Lamont Roach Jr., there's Ogawa, there's Cordina, there's Gutierrez, there's Canseco, there's Ziani, and there's Foster, and these are all top contenders amongst the super featherweights, and they could all produce worthwhile, good quality fights against Navarrete for his WBO super featherweight world title if he doesn't get that fight versus Valdez next immediately. And Liam Wilson, he's a good challenger still at super featherweight, and it was a good competitive fight that we saw this past Friday night. And as boxing fans, I want y'all to answer this question. Would y'all like to see another fight with Emanuel Navarrete and Liam Wilson? I personally don't. But y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think. Anyways, that does it for this video. Comment, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And I'm out of here, y'all. Peace.